I'm Matt Elman, and you're listening to the Complete Confidence with Cambridge podcast. We've got lots of useful tips and tricks to help you plan your school year as you prepare your learners for their Cambridge English qualifications. Whether you've been teaching exam classes for years or just at the start of your teaching career, come along with us. We'll help you unpack the English language exam journey using our own real-life experience and easy-to-follow examples from the exam preparation course Complete. So, let's get started. Today's episode is brought to you by Olha Madylus. Olha has taught in the UK, Greece, Hong Kong and Venezuela. She's a freelance author, materials designer, consultant and teacher trainer, and her main focus is on understanding and motivating learners.
In today's podcast, I'm going to focus on scaffolding. I think you've probably heard this word before, particularly when it comes to teaching younger students. It means helping students as much as possible, giving them the support they need to learn skills necessary. It's very much a step-by-step approach. And I'm going to focus on three main areas of scaffolding, which I believe will really help exam preparation class students. Jerome Bruner wrote about scaffolding many years ago, and he broke it down into various steps. And the first step I want to look at is when he talks about helping students to manage a task, is that you have to break down the tasks into chunks. And this makes perfect sense to me when it comes to exams, because the exam can seem like this huge, many-headed monster. And there are so many things you need to be able to do well in an exam question. So, where we are lucky is that the course book really does this for us already. The course book takes a step-by-step approach. So, for example, if we look at a writing task in the course book, the first step, the students are asked to read the question carefully. And this may seem very obvious to us, but for students sometimes, especially in an exam situation, they're very nervous and they rush to do the writing. But the first thing to do is to analyse what are we required to do in that question to do well. And it's worthwhile doing this task all on its own. Not saying, right, we're going to write the whole essay, but let's just look at a question. What do we need to do well? Once we've done that, the next step will be planning. And again, planning is not something that students think they have time to do, but it's so important because it fits in to the first stage. What does the question require of us? And at preliminary level, it won't be too complicated. It might be write an email and you have to do 3 or 4 things in that email. So you isolate the task and then you think, okay, here's my plan. I need to do A, B, C. Then what's the next stage? You write your email and you think about doing things like being friendly, being informal, and also about the grammar and vocabulary you use. So here we are, breaking it down into separate tasks as we help to prepare the students. Not just to say, right, today you're going to write an email, or just say write an email for homework. No, that's going to make sure that they make lots of mistakes. So we don't want to do that. So think about how do you break things down as you prepare students. And as I say, the course book does this already. Now, why would we do that? Well, we want to get into good habits, but also this is a success-oriented approach to exam preparation. And we have to remember that particularly at the beginning of a course, students are just learning, they're just developing the exam skills and the language skills which they will need to take the exam. So we want the students to be successful at each stage and feel confident and motivated. So we start off making it as easy and structured as possible. And then by the time they're ready to take the exam, we remove that scaffolding because they don't need it anymore. This approach helps us to focus on sub-skills. So, what are sub-skills? Well, let's look at writing, for example. What do you think are the sub-skills of writing? I think between us, we could write probably 20 sub-skills. Vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, paragraphing, structure, who's the reader, what's the message, the register, the functions. Gosh, it's a long list. So we really do need to help the students focus on those separately. It's a big, big task to just say write. So what we get in the course book is things like gapped activities. So students have a text, but they just have to fill in the gaps. They're focusing perhaps on the grammar or the vocabulary. Maybe they're having to think about what kind of word goes into the gap. But this really is part of breaking it down. There are also lovely activities in the course books, which you may not think are very useful, but they really are. It's things like checking spelling mistakes, doing work on punctuation. And as I say, these are activities which are best done separately to begin with. Another aspect of scaffolding that Bruner focuses on is he says that teachers should show how things are done, should actually focus on the process. And I think this is a really important thing, not just to look at the different things you need to do, but what do you do first, and create a checklist, for example, for the students, because this is really useful. If they get used to having this mental checklist, they can use this in class, for homework, and then finally in the exam. So, for example, in listening part 1, what do you think would be the first thing that students have to do? They really do need to read the question carefully. They have that time before they listen. Look at the question, read it super carefully. Then look at the pictures. What ideas are they getting from the pictures? What words do they expect to hear from the picture? So that third stage would be the prediction stage. Look at the pictures. What do you expect to hear? So for each question, take it step by step. Don't just say, listen, answer the questions. Help them to break it down. This is really, really useful to build up those exam skills. Another aspect of scaffolding is to see examples of a task that is well done. How do our students know that they've done a good job? I'm thinking particularly for a writing task or for speaking when they have to produce language. What is expected of them? What kind of writing, what kind of story would be a good story? I'm going to give you a few suggestions for when you can use models. Now, if you haven't seen the handbooks for each exam, you really do need to get hold of them. And what we see in the exam handbooks are examples of answers. So, for example, for the writing, there'll be a number of different essays, different emails, different stories, and the criteria for marking, and then the notes from the examiner. And it will point out why a candidate would have got a good mark or not so good mark. Now, this is a great thing to show students because they can see what is expected to get the best marks. And I would certainly use these, really use them in class with the students and get them to be examiners. Maybe look at a few together, tell them what the grades are, and then get them to mark one in pairs or threes, and then start using that criteria for their own writing. So we give them a checklist for preparing to do a task, and then we have a checklist for them to look at and see, did I fill in the right criteria? Did I do a good job? What could I have done better? Now, in terms of giving students help, scaffolding, and giving them a good model, one thing that comes to my mind at this level is that students do have huge problems with writing. And when they write, they quite often get a lot of corrections on the page, which is not very motivating for them. And I leave out some of the words, like adjectives or nouns. And these are the words that are really useful to showcase the vocabulary they know. And what they have to do in that activity is to fill in those words. And I really encourage them to use lovely words, not just the first word they hear, but use the language that you have learnt, use the lovely vocabulary that you know. And this is great because once they've filled it in, they will see a complete story and it will be perfect. There'll be no mistakes in it. And that is a really good stage in their writing journey. They've written those words, they've written them well, they've produced a lovely story, sometimes a very funny story even. And as we move on, we give them less and less. We take out more of those words. But it's like having a bicycle when you have training wheels. You give them the right amount of support. You can also do this with punctuation. You can write an email and just leave out all the capital letters, all the full stops and commas, and ask them to put them in. And obviously, there are lots of very good tasks like this in the course book. And what they do is they give you a model of something like an email or something like a story. And the students are asked to look at the different parts of it, to think about the different parts, and then create their own version. But they have that model, and that is very important. That they've got this in their mind. They know exactly what they have to do.
Let's recap.
So if we look at these three aspects of scaffolding, we can see how they can lead our students to be very successful. So firstly, we break down what they have to do into manageable tasks. Then we show them how to do things, and then show them what is a good answer. So this is a really good way to start the exam journey. We'll give them at the beginning as much support as they need. Through this, they'll be successful, which will really build their motivation and their confidence. I do hope you found this podcast useful and you've got some good ideas to take into your classrooms. Don't worry if you missed anything, because this is a podcast, and that means you can listen to it again on the bus, in the kitchen, wherever you are, and hopefully you can take all these ideas into your exam classes. Bye for now.
That's it for today. Discover more episodes from this series on our website, cambridge.org/completeconfidence. We have podcast episodes for every level of the Cambridge exams. Come back and join us again soon. And don't worry, you've got this.
You've been listening to the Complete Confidence with Cambridge podcast, brought to you by Cambridge University Press and Assessment.